So even though there's a lot of information out there about resumes for early career data analysts and career transitioners, I'm still seeing a lot of people get stuck in the resume wall. I've heard of people sending hundreds, sometimes even thousands of resumes and hearing back from like less than 5% of those jobs. And yes, part of it is the job market, but honestly, if that's the case, part of it is also your resume, because I've had students who were in the same bucket just a few months ago eventually get their resume conversion rate up to 10%. And part of the main challenge is knowing how to actually translate your experience in a way that resonates with data hiring managers. And so in today's video, I'm going to show you the concept of 3D bullets, which is a way that you can make your resume stand out no matter where you're starting from. And at the end, I'll leave you with a few practical do's and don'ts that can immediately transform the conversion rate of your resume. If you're new here, I'm Christine. I'm a former data director and hiring manager, and last year I founded the Analytics Accelerator program, which takes people on the most lean path to starting a job in data. In this channel, I'm sharing unique insights that have actually worked for my students, help them get their data job in a few months or less without any previous data experience. Let's just set the stage with where you might be now as an aspiring analyst and where you should point yourself to become a standout applicant. So right now you might be having a less than 4% conversion rate on your resume. Maybe your resume looks very typical and you have some unrelated experience on there, which results in your story being very scattered. Instead, to become a standout applicant, you want to start pointing yourself towards trying to get a 7 to 10% conversion rate on your resume. So that means like out of 100 resumes, you're hearing back from 10 jobs. Yes, that sounds kind of low, but I'm just going to keep it real with you guys. It is very competitive out there. So these are the realistic numbers for what I'm seeing for students who really stand out in the market today. You have an eye-catching design. Everything that you have on your resume is really analytics focused, and you also have a cohesive narrative for how your experience comes together. The first concept of the 3D bullet is that every resume should have 3 degrees of detail and align with at least one analytics trait. And I'm not going to talk too much about what analytics traits are because you can just look this up on job descriptions. Just look through a bunch of the postings and also get a sense for what are the most common technical tools, soft skills, and also business skills and business metrics that you see across these job postings. And that's the general direction that you want to orient your bullets towards. So the first section is the bio, and it's not always super necessary to have a bio, but I do think this can be helpful for people who are transitioning from other industries to help tell a cohesive 5-second narrative about how your past experience relates to data and also your current intention. I'm going to show you a few examples now of resumes from students in my program, and most of these students were people who did not have previous data experience and then landed their first data full-time job within 3 months, so that you know that this works. This first bullet comes from Jennifer, who was just in my last cohort, and she has a bio that said, US military veteran with 14 years in the mortgage industry, expert in credit risk assessment, process optimization, and rockstar customer service. Proficient in Excel, SQL, and Tableau, skilled in data cleaning, data visualization, and data reporting to communicate trends and patterns, derive actionable insights, and improve operational efficiency. Detail-oriented and adept at storytelling through data, I'm eager to leverage my extensive expertise and newly acquired data analytics skills in a dynamic role. So here the 3 degrees of detail are past experience with 1 to 2 unique details, a personality trait aligned with analytics roles, and a value proposition and intention for the next role. Her unique details were about the industry that she comes from, but then also outlining something like rockstar customer service, which translates to a number of different data positions. Detail-oriented and adept at storytelling, that helps me understand a little bit more about who she is as a person that might be working on my team, and then also being really clear about her intention to move into a role where she can take this domain knowledge. Here's another example from Mo, who was in my first cohort. He's based in the UK, and he was actually a math teacher who then had some analytics experience and then transitioned into a full-time data role. And his bio said this: passionate data analyst with a background in education and current experience in e-commerce. Specialized in Excel, SQL, and Tableau to lead reporting on financial and marketing metrics, optimizing budget allocation, and conducting product analysis. A problem solver focused on delivering tangible results and implementing data-informed strategies, leveraging my background in education to drive collaboration, effective communication, and leadership in achieving common goals. And the big thing here is that he mentioned his background in education and also his knowledge of specific metrics that carry across to a number of different data industries, and then tied in some soft skills so that at the end, not that many people can say the same exact bullet and it really stands out. Now let's get to the juicy stuff, which is portfolio projects and data work. I see a lot of times people work so hard on their portfolio projects and then the bullets on their resumes just do not do it justice. So when it comes to any kind of technical project, you always want to make sure that you have 3 degrees here, which are technical details, quantified metrics and insights, so your findings, and also relevance to a team. Now, this last one is really important because that is what legitimizes your project and is something that hiring managers would actually be interested in. It's not a project that you were just doing in a vacuum where you're just having some fun with technical tools. It's something that you built that would have actually been helpful to someone in a real work context. So let's look at this example. This is from a student who's talking about the project that we actually work on in the program. And she named it McFly Electronics Store Project. And then she said cleaned, analyzed, and visualized 108K purchase transactions in Excel and SQL, discovering key insights such as a 3 times higher purchase likelihood and a 14% increase in average order value for loyalty program members compared to non-members. Visualize product trends, seasonal patterns, and regional sales through an interactive Tableau dashboard, highlighting peak sales periods and identifying 13 countries that generated 82% of sales for marketing efforts. First of all, notice how we talked about this project as if we were an actual data analyst working at this company. We don't focus so much on the technical stuff, but instead we do include the what. So what were we actually working with? The how. So how did we actually surface insights? And then lastly, who would this have been helpful for? So targeted marketing efforts shows me a little bit that you know some about marketing metrics and you know how to apply these tools to actually surface insights for a marketing team. So this is another bullet for a project that a student did outside of the program, and he called it revealing high-value target customers. Identified high-value customers the client should target acquiring through database marketing analysis. Completed exploratory data analysis, model development, and interpretation of demographic and transactional data from clients' 4K customers and 20K transactions. Merge data sets via Excel's Power Pivot. Use pivot table to conduct RFM analysis, created an interactive Tableau dashboard revealing the customer's key attributes, trends, and who to target in future marketing efforts. So again, he has the what, which is what was the data that you actually worked with, what was the technical tool. Then he has the how, which is how did you actually use these things and who it would have been helpful for. Now let's talk a little bit about non-data work experience. So the positions that are valuable to include here are any positions where you're working in an office, you have a little bit of data work, and you've also worked in the context of a team. Do not include jobs that are not really in a corporate setting. Most of the time, this is just going to dilute the effectiveness of your overall resume. So for non-data work experience, you want to make sure that you have your role with 1 to 2 unique details, quantified metrics if possible, and also include the team impact. When it comes to quantified metrics, I know a lot of people are like, well, when I was working at that job, I didn't know that I was going to transition into data, so I wasn't really tracking the quantified impact. And it's totally understandable. It's fine. My rule of thumb is that as long as you can estimate the impact with anything like time saved, money saved, any kind of operational metrics where you can measure some kind of impact, as long as you have a rationale that you could explain your logic in an interview, that is fine to include that as a number. And here, our main question is, how does your previous experience relate to analytics in terms of the technical skills, soft skills, and business impact? And a lot of times I see bullets that look something like this. Collaborated cross-functionally to navigate ambiguity and solve complex business problems, ensuring the implementation of impactful solutions that drove a 37% increase in operational efficiency across the company. Sounds nice, but it's saying a lot without actually saying that much. As a hiring manager, I would have questions like, who did you collaborate cross-functionally with? What were the business problems you were solving? What were the solutions that you were bringing up? And also, when you say efficiency, how are we actually measuring the increase and improvement in efficiency in this case? I also want to show you a before and after of a bullet for a job that seems not that related to data at first and how we can actually translate it. So let's say you're a teacher. You might have a bullet that looks like teach natural sciences to students in 8th and 9th grade and coordinate with testing department to create standardized test benchmarks. As a data hiring manager, I'm kind of like, okay, how does that relate to me? So the after version of this resume looks something like this. Develop curriculum for a 3-month science class taught to over 60 high school students. coordinated with science department to create 5 monthly presentations to communicate technical concepts to non-technical audience, use Excel to measure and track student progress, as well as establish benchmarks related to test scores and grades. Now, even though this still isn't directly related to data, and you would still need to have different sections on your resume that kind of bridge the gap on the technical side, this does now help me much better understand the number of people you are working with, and also the skill of being able to communicate technical things to a variety of different audiences, as well as using some technical tool in your day-to-day job to measure and track something, which is something that we do as data analysts all the time. Now let's look at some more resume bullets that come from students who successfully transitioned from other related roles. So for example, as a marketing associate, reduce potential issues by 20% and increase deal profitability by 10% by analyzing mortgage pipeline data to identify risks and exceptions with targeted investors, and improved current lock methods by analyzing market data and volatility. The things that do translate are the quantified metric here, the kind of data that you're working with, and also who you were doing this for. And again, notice that these numbers aren't super large. It's actually just the fact that we have these numbers on there that help me understand a bit about your quantitative thinking. As a store manager, so someone who was actually working at a bike shop, and he described this role as manage daily operations, business reporting, and sales, hired as junior mechanic and earned multiple promotions during tenure. Drove sales 29% above forecast by providing sales staff with Excel spreadsheets to track unmet customer demand and reporting findings to global merchandising team, resulting in changes to company's global merchandising strategy. He made it super relevant because he has a quantified metric here. Then he also included Excel spreadsheets and talked about how he actually used this to help another team, which would have been the global merchandising team. And then lastly, as a project manager, so manage global cross-functional teams between 6 to 20 plus team members per project. Collaborate with designers, developers, and client stakeholders to deliver solutions and custom workflows and integrations with these acronyms and SSO systems. So in this case, the metric here is not actually a business metric. It's just the value of the number of team members that he worked with. But that still helps me understand the magnitude of the teams that you were collaborating with. Designers, developers, and client stakeholders, so I know that you can work across different kinds of teams. And also I understand a little bit about the how when it comes to custom workflows and integrations. Quick note here, I actually would have recommended to just take one of these acronyms and spell it out instead of including a bunch of acronyms that a data hiring manager doesn't understand. I know a lot of you guys who are watching are recent grads or coming from academia or even education, and there's always this question of, well, I don't really have a lot of related work experience, but I did do research or schoolwork that is relevant, and so how do I actually translate that? My 3 degrees of detail that I recommend here are applied technical skills, soft skills, and the person-to-person context. For these kinds of experiences, we're going to be asking, how does your educational experience translate to the day-to-day analytics job? So let me show an example bullet that actually comes from a student who had a PhD in astronomy. And as you can imagine, she was having some trouble translating her work and her research about stars and the galaxy and things that were just quite literally way out there into something that would really resonate with a data hiring manager. So this is the final bullet used to describe one of those research projects. Perform data consolidation, alignment, and validation for 6.5 million records and 1,000 columns of raw star data, casual, from greater than 10 databases using SQL and Python. Developed analytical techniques to perform high-level categorization of stars using statistical distributions, chi-square minimization, regression analysis, and data visualization. Increased binary classification accuracy by 780% compared to industry benchmark of only 10%. So this student actually now works as a data science consultant. And one thing that we really focused on in her resume is to pull out the approaches and concepts that are relevant across data analytics and data science jobs. So that includes mentioning things like data consolidation, alignment, and validation. It includes including the scale of the data set, especially since it's so large, which is quite impressive. Of course, the technical tools, and then at the end, mentioning the result in a quantified way. Here's another example from a student who was an exceptional undergrad, and he said, mentored and provided guidance to a student on a 12-month data project using Python and Jupyter Notebook, providing technical expertise and leading weekly meetings. This does show some of his soft skills and being able to collaborate and lead someone else. And then back to that student who I mentioned earlier, who used to be a teacher, he wrote teacher of mathematics and key stage 3 to 5 leader. Tracked whole school progress and delivered lessons successfully across all key stages, including A-level. Created content for schemes of work, analyzed data to monitor progress process and gap analysis to ensure students were exceeding expected targets. Now, there's a little bit of terminology translation here because he's actually based in the UK, so I know this is not really how our American school system works, but the most important part here is that he included a little bit about what was data relevant about this job, and then also talked more about the tracking and the measurement and the delivering of lessons, which is a communication thing, to help make this more relevant to a data manager. So let me leave you with a few don'ts and then also mention some do's. Don't include aspirational phrases. So don't say things like self-learned, transitioning data analyst, self-taught. This is just disadvantaging you against other candidates who are not using those phrases. Don't use generic bullets that anyone else could easily say, and also don't talk about projects as if they were done in an isolated vacuum. Instead of thinking of yourself as an aspiring data analyst, just start getting in the mindset that you are actually speaking from the point of view as someone who is a data analyst. Have multiple lines per bullet, because if your bullet is less than 1 line long, it probably means it's not detailed enough and someone else could easily say the same thing. And then lastly, always include the team context. Anytime you're working with certain stakeholders or collaborating across other teams, we want to know that. We want to know who you're actually working with in your previous job so that we can better understand how that translates to a data team. That is it for this video. I hope you found it helpful when it comes to writing your resume. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm going to have so many more insights for you guys about what's working for my students to land their first data job as fast as possible. I'll see you in the next one.